Good morning out there, traders. It is March 19th, 2024. Let's dive into our ESDMI. Taking a look at our recap from yesterday, another kind of spot on situation for us with the DMI. We had a dissonant picture, as we call it. Dissonance meaning that we have conflicting ideas across different time frames. We have bullish levels down below, we have bearish levels up above. This is creating kind of a back and forth rotational picture that we've been seeing for most of the month now. And what we have here are some decent levels to the overall bigger context of what's going on in the ES. Now, yesterday, this was our main line in the sand early in the session as we kind of headed up here. It looked like there was some really strong buying coming into that zone. So whenever we have really strong price movement, kind of like what we're seeing here, often whenever we get to an area like this, it takes some time to turn. It takes time for this market to digest orders and turn and move and so forth, especially from the time frames that we're trading with these areas. So this line in the sand here, definitely our area of interest. It comes up, holds this outer edge, very, very well here, starts to sell off and gives us a good opportunity to get short. That wasn't the best opportunity of the session as it pushes back up here. Doesn't fully accept above this level. Still in scenario 1 here from the line in the sand. And that really was the trade of the day. I mean, it pretty much just held from there all the way to the downside, heading into neutral references, continuing to the downside into the close of the session, which is like right down into here. The overnight kind of continuing that particular trade to the downside as well. So one of those situations where we didn't quite fulfill targets or anything like that, but we did have the right bias for what was happening in this zone, in this area. So it's a really solid DMI for us and another really good, day in, day out prep. So let's update our levels and take a look at what's going on today. Okay, so nothing much has really changed. As a matter of fact, you'll see the outer line in the sand areas are still pretty much the same as they were yesterday. I haven't changed them because nothing really shifted on our upper time frames from what was going on yesterday. The only shift that we're seeing, the only real change in any of our time frames is coming from a lower time frame here in this section. And this really is a bearish idea. It's a bearish what is picture. It's not a strong trading idea. I want to emphasize that. It's, a low level if you're grading these, more like a C+ type of area. But this is a condition along the way as we head down to destinations on higher time frames. So this area here is more of a continuation type of trade, more of a continuation type of situation. And often those types of trades can be tricky to handle. But it is a persisting condition on our analysis. So what we have with today's scenarios, same ideas with the outer lines in the sand. They are bearish in nature and bullish in nature until proven otherwise. But this middle one here is bearish in terms of acceptance right now, and that's the way it stays until proven otherwise. So our main trade idea, our main list for the session really is this one here, with the main trade being scenario 1. If we get a pullback up into here, heading down past these neutral references into that bullish line in the sand, and that would be it for scenario 1. That's what we're looking for out of that trade, and that's pretty much the only thing going on with today's prep that has solid NADRO merit behind it, or strength behind it. From there, if we start to see that line in the sand here break up, in other words, we start to see scenario 2 where it breaks up from there, it's a fresh condition change on the time frame that this, trade idea is coming from. It's a scalping opportunity to the long side coming back up into the bearish zone up here. And that's the way I would treat it. It would be new information, at least in this market, and definitely something that we could get on board with from a scalping perspective. But once again, low level in terms of the opportunity. The main opportunities really are coming from these outer edges from our higher time frames, and those are creating much larger, longer moves in terms of rhythm. So these lower time frame ideas, they are more or less continuations along with these bigger time frames. So that's the overall landscape we find ourselves in today. This dissonant picture still persists from either side, with one trade idea really available to us in the center of this chop back and forth. Now, with that being covered, if we do break out of that area, we do have some zones to pay attention to. So if we do break out of the downside here, we have a neutral reference, and then as we come down into here, we get another bullish reference. This is really the end of the road for the bulls from our higher time frame perspective. So if we do break out, we get down into this bullish zone, you can treat that like a line in the sand. We're bullish up above, bearish below it. If that kind of thing happens. If we get back into the upside, we get that fresh condition shift on this line in the sand, head up into here, and that fails. Then we start seeing a lot more bullish confirmation as well across our different time frames as we head into different conditions to the upside. So that's the full landscape of the bigger picture of what we're seeing in the context stuff. But today, as we hone in and hone down into like what's going on today, this is really where our focus is. We have a line in the sand in the center of this thing. We have bearish below, bullish above as opportunities. These are the destinations for either side of that market. Once we get to those levels, that's pretty much it for the trading ideas for today. Those levels, are expected to hold until proven otherwise. All right, trade well out there. Mind your process. I know that the DMI is a little bit more complicated today. That's because today's DMI is very, very low level in terms of opportunity. It's not. I was hesitating to even put it out to the public, but the reality is that some days this is how it goes. Some markets just enter into a period of kind of stagnation where nothing new is happening, no fresh analysis is really all that great, and you come into a situation where the market just isn't showing you something that is all that interesting. That's where we find ourselves right now at the ES. So it's not the greatest of conditions from an analysis and contextual narrative standpoint. We do have meaningful zones, but they are not, the highest of quality, especially what we're seeing today. The real quality in terms of our natural analysis comes from the edges of where this market is, and you can see that we're kind of rotating around those areas right now. So in the middle here in this line in the sand, it is a zone to pay attention to. In the current what is picture is that it's bearish. If that shifts, then scalping level to the upside. If it holds, scalping level to the downside, and keep that in perspective in the overall picture that we're seeing here in this dissonance between higher time frames. All right, trade well out there. Mind your process. If you trade at all, not a bad day to put the ES aside and go look for opportunity elsewhere.